So, hey guys, welcome to a special episode. Today we have a really great talk with one of my good friends, Forrest from Hashtoshi. So, I guess we're broadcasting this on both our channels, and let's do a little
Mhm.
intro. So, Forrest, can you introduce a little bit about yourself and how you got into this whole crypto thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thanks for having me on the channel. But yeah, my story about how I got into crypto really started about 10 years ago. I was on StumbleUpon clicking through, just looking for something to read, and I found the Bitcoin white paper by happenstance. Fell in love with the concept and the ethos of it, and then the rest was history. And when Ethereum came out, kept up with that, and I come from a tech background, so I started building with Ethereum. Goofy stuff early on, but then it's turned into something pretty beautiful now. So I'm really really lucky to be a part of the space.
Nice, and I think that's a perfect example of someone doing something good. I mean, like I know I browsed stumble upon, I didn't stumble upon Bitcoin, sadly. My story is a little bit similar, but I was more looking for how to make money back in 2012. So I was a very big gamer, and I was like, okay, look, how do I make money with these gaming PCs? I actually had three
Yeah.
gaming PCs, and I was actually mining Diablo. So like just Diablo 3 is a very big game. I was actually using them to like literally use bots to mine that game, right? It's kind of weird. But anyways, there was a downtime. I've discovered Bitcoin. I was mining Bitcoin, and Bitcoin at that time was mineable by a normal PC, and to a point where I was getting like Bitcoin was at $10 at this time, by the way. So I was getting zero
Yeah.
point 0.3 Bitcoin per day. So that sounds like something ridiculous now, but
No, yeah.
at that time it was $3 a day. So it's not that well, $3 every other day. So still, it's not that much.
Hey. Yeah.
My biggest regret at that time was that I didn't keep it. So I was like, okay, look, I'm a miner. I should just sell it. And I didn't really
Yeah.
look at the vision too much, right? I was just like, I was cut and dry. I'm like, okay, this thing moved from $10 to $15, just sell it all. And
Yeah.
then I was in regret for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I started this channel. So like I was in a regret for like 4 years. I started this channel roughly around 2016, right before that major bull run. So I was just sharing my ideas. And then that was when as a community, as the whole box mining community, we kind of discovered why this is important. And then it started becoming something that's like this whole community helping each other discover everything
Yeah.
out there, explaining some things, and then going on. So I guess that's kind of the spirit. And I think we come from two different angles. Like, I mean, I'm not a tech background, but I'm learning more tech. So I
Yeah.
guess you're a tech background and you're like discovering the beauty of this whole system. So I guess that's kind of fun, right?
Yeah, it's wild. And I mean, I my story of starting my channel is very similar, but I didn't have the guts to start a channel and talk about this stuff until I saw more people interested. So like in 2017, I'm like, wow, people actually care about this, because I've been made fun of so much by like my friends. They're like, what is this Bitcoin thing? Like, just shut up about it, And so eventually I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a channel. I'm going to do this, and it'll, at least I can, explain topics to people and all that sort of thing. But wild world, man.
Nice. And I mean, coming to this day, right? So now we're kind of re-entering. We hear the bulls rumbling again. What's your kind of take on this current market? Do you feel relieved? Do you feel happy? Do you feel scared? What's your take?
I would say like cautiously optimistic. In my mind, I think a lot of it is because in the 2 years plus since the last big bull run cycle, there's been a lot of growth. I think it's hard to see when you look at every day as an isolated day, but if you look across the last 2 years, there's been a lot of growth in the space in terms of the product offering, in terms of the maturity of the user experience. A lot of things have really come to fruition, and a lot of projects have started to deliver on white papers that were just ideas in 2017. And so I think that that's partially what's driving it, and that's good. But then I also think there's the normal hype where people don't really get what they're doing or get what they're investing in, and that's driving, some of the DeFi stuff. It sounds cool, but if you really think about it below the surface level, you're like, I don't know about that. I'm not sure if that's going to fly,
Exactly. And I think similar to you too, and I think I totally agree with you. I mean, back in 2017, and even before that, 2016, I think I was talking to some friends, and I'm like, oh, I just bought 3 GPUs, AMD RX 480s at that time, and I got them cheap, and I'm gonna start mining Ethereum, and then they're like, have fun. That sucks.
Yeah,
You're like,
enjoy.
you enjoy nerd. And one of them actually even bet against it. He's like, you're gonna lose money. I'm gonna bet you $100 you're gonna lose money on that, right?
Yeah.
And then boy, did I prove that wrong, right? Like it's like at that time, it was fighting against all these people who were like, this is a scam. This is going to zero. You know, they didn't believe it. So right now, I think there's a change now. I think at least for me, right? At least for me, I've suddenly started understanding. Maybe I'm surrounding myself with different friends, but suddenly when I talk to Bitcoin to my friends, they're like, "Oh, tell me a little bit more." You know, they're a lot more receptive to it. And then I think if you have a good pitch as well, if you're like, you know, telling them, look, you know, look at these bank accounts right now that's happening. You know, this trade war between U.S. and China, and how U.S. is actually closing Chinese people's bank accounts, and then like Chinese are also closing American bank accounts. You know, they're suddenly realizing, okay,
There might be some value here.
Yeah, there might be some value here, like having this decentralized, having actual sovereignty over your capital. These are all concepts that I think like people are starting to slowly understand now. And I feel like this is what is going to propel that next wave, right? When people suddenly start realizing, okay, this finance system is not what we think it is.
Yeah.
Right? And I think this is going to be the click for most people. So I'm pretty excited for that. But obviously, I totally agree with you right now. Like a little bit of the whole DeFi stuff, it's a little bit too crazy. And I was very direct with people, like with all the meme coins. You know, we were just talking about yams right before this episode started.
Right.
We got yams. We got pork chop today.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't do that.
It's like every food possible. Let's just go through the emoji list and just, you know, chop it up. Let's do it.
Dude, that's what I did. That's what I did. I just went to the fruit emoji list and I just typed every single character and then put .finance and I just see if they'll purchase or not. And if they're not purchased, I'm just gonna buy it. $10, why not? So I got some good ones. If anyone wants to buy them, I got spam.finance. You know, spam is great, right? Everyone loves spam. We got what was it? We got sleep.finance. You know, we need some sleep.
Why not? Why not? Yeah.
Anyways, this is the whole situation right now. Kind of face palming myself, but you know, I think one thing that we actually wanted to discuss, like beyond this insanity and all this good stuff, I think as a programmer, I think one of the topics we chose to discuss very early on was Ethereum 2.0. I mean, we're close to that launch right now. What's your kind of take on this whole thing?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and I think it's a topic that so many people are buzzing about right now. And to be honest with you, I think there are a couple things. One, recently there's this Medalla testnet going on, and that is, I guess, the release candidate for this beacon chain, the proof of stake, and basically the base layer for Ethereum 2.0. And there was an issue with the testnet that came from usage of a centralized system, a Cloudflare like timekeeping mechanism. And so that caused syncing issues and all sorts of stuff. And the testnet basically crashed more or less. There was like 5% or something of the network still in sync or still working right. And so people were like panicking, like, oh my God, like this, Ethereum 2.0 is not going to work. In reality, it's a minor issue, but obviously something that needs to be fixed. But I think little things like that really hurt people's, I guess, opinions about Ethereum 2.0. And every little problem is going to get blown up because of how congested Ethereum 1.0 is right now. And so because everyone is like desperate for this to come out. But the reality is we're probably close to 2 years away from Ethereum 2.0 in a form that can hold something like a Uniswap, right? Like it's not going to be August, the end of August or September, and then, Uniswap can port to ETH 2.0. Like it's going to take a lot of time. So I think people just need to realize that and set expectations as accordingly.
I think so. I definitely think Ethereum took off. I mean, right now, gas prices are literally 120 Gwei. And just before starting this video, I had to send like 5 transactions off. Like I had to swap some coins, and then I have to stake those coins, and then I have to unstake something. And I just had to do 5 transactions, and that literally cost me $100. And I was just like, okay, I have to bite the bullet for this one. Yeah. So it's getting very expensive to interact. And technically, these interactions should be fast and nearly free, right? And I think a lot of people are like squealing right now. And I mean, obviously, money is being made, so of people are still willing. So I'm still willing to pay these costs, but I'm just feel like it shouldn't happen. So I feel like people are impatient for it, but at the same time, I kind of realize, with all this, prior to this, I'm also in the gaming industry, and I know that my experience with working with programmers is you double the time required that they say they will take, right? They say they'll take 3 weeks to finish this. You just double that. That's just as a program, like as a project manager, you just know, right? Something's going to screw up.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
It's like something's going to screw up.
You don't build bugs into your timeline. Like, it's like, this is my happy path. Like, if everything goes perfectly, it'll take me 3 weeks, but nothing goes perfectly ever, No. And I'm guilty of the same thing all the time. But exactly. Like, it's wild, the problem is that Ethereum 2.0 is, to date, the most difficult protocol project that will have ever been completed in crypto. And I think that's the thing that's missing here, is that, and I will say Vitalik, I think, didn't even realize how big this was. And I think recently he admitted that on that podcast where Samson and him were arguing about which is better, which is just so stupid to me anyways.
That was the biggest waste of time ever, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? But anyways, I think he even said, like, this was way harder than we had ever imagined. And I think that there have been several times where they went down a path for proof of stake or what have you, and then realized it didn't work, and they scrapped it and went all the way back and started from scratch multiple times, because to create a protocol that's backwards compatible with everything that exists today, because there's such a rich ecosystem of dApps, but is also better in every other way, that's really just like really hard architecturally to do.
Exactly. And I think this was like being like called almost like changing the engine of a moving airplane, right? Your passengers are already sitting on the airplane. They're already like 400 meters or whatever above sea level. You want this plane to be as safe as possible, but at the same time, that with your current engine, you're not going to last very long. So you got to change it. So it's like, it's a huge monumental piece. And even like, I think a lot of people don't realize this, but this deployment of Ethereum 2.0, this first deployment that we're having right now, so Mandela after this, it's not really going to be able to launch smart contract. It's just a beacon chain, right? It's just like it's just a light bulb, right? And then afterwards, you have the sharding mechanism. Then you have to test if these shards work, and then you have to transfer coins from this current Ethereum, I guess 1.0 to Ethereum 2.0, and it's just like, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So we'll hope to see it goes well. I mean, like, I personally look at the project plan. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna take the first phase, and like then they're probably gonna change it after first phase launches. So I'm not even gonna research after that, right?
Yeah.
Let's just talk about this first phase. I think I actually kind of like it. Like, I actually really like what they're doing, because in terms of Ethereum 2.0, there's multiple people developing for it. I think that's cool. I think a lot of people don't realize that with this testnet is that there are multiple labs, be it Lighthouse or be it Prismatic Labs, etc. They're all developing their own clients for it, which is great. That means like it's actually decentralized in terms of developers, right? And then also you allow a lot of participants. A lot of chains, they sacrifice speed, so they have high speed but low participants, right? But here with Ethereum 2.0, you're having anyone with 32 ETH can stake it, and then all of a sudden you can have so many different participants. I'm participating in this like testnet, and I think like I think it's great. Using
it's fantastic.
Yeah, have you participated?
Yeah, I have. This particular test that I was even more excited to like play around with, because I was very interested to see what the metrics would be for the network in terms of participation, like you said, because this is the closest thing to like a public dry run of what the actual mainnet would look like when it comes to fruition, and so. I wanted to see how much, dummy ether was going to get, locked up. I wanted to see how many different entities would be participating. And so I was pleasantly surprised about that. But I think that that's why Ethereum has an advantage in that regard, because when they come up with a solution, they were able to make an assumption that there would be some base level of participation to make the network secure from day one that I think other networks just don't have, because they don't have that community yet. Ethereum already does have the community, and so they can say, we can assume that X number of nodes are going to be there day one, and that this amount of ether is going to be staked day one. And that's why all these test nets are helpful for them to, figure out what that looks like.
Exactly. And I think the value of the community is very important. I think a lot of people, at this current point of time, there's so much talk about blockchain 3.0, blockchain 4.0. I mean, throw all the marketing jargon out there. There's so many high performance blockchains out there, but at the same time, no one's moving to that. So it goes to show that the community is vital, not just a developer community, but also a rich whale community. I think that's also something very powerful in ETH that we should not neglect. A lot of people are looking at these whales, be like, yo, we want some of your money. Which is good and bad.
Let's get in on that.
Exactly. So I think there hasn't been a big platform that's rivaled that. I mean, Tron tried to buy as much devs as possible, but I think their community isn't as strong. We've seen a few. I do think that hopefully we have multiple ecosystems. I actually feel like that's actually good for the whole ecosystem. I think something that really changed my mind recently was I had this interview with CZ, and he was like, "Oh, it's not just about one person winning everyone else and beating everyone else. It's about converting the entire world, right? We got to work together here." And I think that hopefully we can cooperate and work together here. And I feel like that's a much stronger narrative than the whole, Ethereum is going to beat everyone, or Bitcoin is going to beat everyone. That's nonsense.
I agree with you, and I think the reality is that the way that these projects are structured and the way that things are starting to move, early on, I think there will be a shakeout where some won't make it, and that's just the reality, but there will be others that fall into a sort of niche that makes sense for them, right? The users are going to like, that the devs can really focus in on. And I'm sure that because a lot of these are decentralized communities, it'll sort of just evolve that way over time, and they'll get rid of features that don't matter for the use case that they're looking for, and just double down on a specific use case. So instead of having this one protocol that just does everything, you're going to have sort of niche down protocols that do a couple things really well and then connect to each other via some interoperability protocol, which I'm very passionate about, by the way. The
very passionate about interoperability. Yeah. So what's your take on this whole, there's two sides to interoperability. So Ethereum, they're bridging a lot of projects onto Ethereum. We saw Ren, the Ren bridge, and etc. And there's also other projects talking about interoperability. I think that's the whole kind of sales pitch of Polkadot right now. What's your take on this right now?
No, I think that there's some value to it. Polkadot, Cosmos, they've built relatively complex protocols around this concept, and basically it allows you to spin up your own blockchain protocol that is compatible with others, since you can do cross chain swaps of assets, and you can delegate security and trust to this layer that is Polkadot or Cosmos. I think it's a really smart move, because there are a lot of protocols that are going to build out products that people want to use, but they're not really natively onboarded onto that particular network. And they're going to want to be able to trust that a transaction they make over there is still valid over here where they are. And there might even be regional networks. There might be an instance where Ethereum is used in the United States more than it is anywhere else, and then there's another blockchain protocol used in Southeast Asia, right? Then they need to talk to each other. Yeah, that might be how it turns out.
I think so. I think interoperability is important. I'm not sure if we need another token to facilitate that interoperability.
I'm torn on that.
I think I definitely think that we're creating too many tokens here, but I think throughout the years, I've learned that it's impossible to stop the river from flowing. My analogy here is I feel like a lot of maximalists are like, oh, stop creating more tokens, stop. But you're like, you cannot stop this river from flowing. I think you just have to understand that people like to speculate on tokens. I think it's a built-in human, weakness or flaw, or we just want to get money fast, right? So I think these few years, I'm like, you know what, maybe just some token use cases, just be careful. Some will work, some will not. Maybe some projects might even work without a token, right? But a lot of these tokens, they don't have a very high market cap. They're not very distributed with a lot of people. So you have to be careful. So I agree with the maximalist argument there, but at the same time, I feel like maximalists, they just stuck their head in the sand and just called everything a scam, which is also
Right.
like the stupidest thing you can ever do right now. I think there's so much innovation in this space. It's crazy. And I'm going to rant a little bit here, but like even in the
Go for
space of
it.
DeFi, right? So DeFi completely changed how centralized exchanges behave right now. So maybe like 4 months ago, you'll ask like X exchange, how I want to list my coin, how much it costs, and they'll give you like a 7-figure number, right? Like they'll quote this ridiculous number, and then you'll have to like
Yeah.
bargain back and forth. And now it's a complete reverse. Now it's like, okay, any DeFi project knows they can just list on Uniswap, get very high liquidity, allow everyone to have access to this. And the CeFi is like centralized exchanges are like, oh shit. Like, we'll list you for free. We'll pay you. We'll pay you. Okay. Like, come on here. Like, bring your users here because we're dying here. So like, I feel like all of a sudden there's that power shift, right? So I think if you ask me about DeFi, I think that's the biggest power shift that we've already seen. All of a sudden, they essentially can force centralized exchanges to have cheaper listing, which is good. But the other biggest revolution here, I think, is with automated market making, because market making firms used to have a whole they have the whole sales pitch. Give me some coins, give me some money, and it will help you market make your coin. And then you can't even prove that. Now with automated market making, not only can you provide liquidity, but you can outsource that liquidity, right? You get projects saying, "Oh, look, just dump into that liquidity pool." All of a sudden, you have much higher liquidity. That just changed the landscape. That changed it kind of completely changed the landscape. So I feel like that's the power of it. Obviously, we're still operating by smart contracts and might not be safe, but I feel like, that's a huge innovation. I don't see how people can ignore that. That just completely changed how coins are listed, coins are done it, and that's crazy. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the level of access is next level. I mean, back in the early days, like, it was very direct. Like, if you wanted to get a new ERC20, like, you had to go directly to the ERC20 contract that this team had built. And if you didn't have the acumen, you're just like, I hope this is right. I hope this is going to work properly. Whereas with Uniswap, you have a little more structure in place, and at least you have an interface to work from, and you can sort of, quickly access these liquidity pools, I guess you could call them, in a split second. It's super easy.
It's super easy. I mean, now the biggest problem is now it needs to be fast. Now you have to deal with problems of front running, and there's still a lot of issues here. But I feel like this gives you the proof of concept of something pretty insane. And the matter of fact is that anyone can write something like this, right? Like, now it's just up to your imagination to write something pretty crazy and being like, boom, we can pop this out. And I mean, we saw that with like a few projects that popped up. I mean, I saw Bounce, like, it just overnight, it became a sensation where now projects are listing on Bounce. I think Uniswap Balancer came up very quickly. Now we're all rediscovering synthetics. It's like the new thing since sliced bread again. It was a new thing since sliced bread, and then
for the
second time, right? Okay. And then all of a sudden this weekend we have wrapped Bitcoin becoming popular, synthetics Bitcoin becoming popular. We have Ren Bitcoin becoming popular. Now we start feeling that, maybe we can have like Bitcoin on Ethereum. I remember the Bitcoin maximalists dissing this. Like when Wrapped Ethereum first came out, like, all the maximalists like, you see now, you Ethereum kids, no one wants Bitcoin on your freaking chain. Bitcoin needs to be on Bitcoin only. And then all of a sudden now we have millions of dollars of Bitcoin being locked on Ethereum. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the funny thing is, it's like Bitcoin was my first entry point into the space. It's, full disclosure, my largest allocation in terms of my net worth. I have every vested interest in Bitcoin being successful and living up to all the expectations people have. That being said, I think it's closed-minded and deluded to think that Bitcoin is just it. Like that's the pinnacle of technology forever. Like, are you joking? Like it doesn't work that way. And when you compare, like, we talked about this before a little bit, even before that we got on this call, but like comparing Ethereum to Bitcoin is like trying to figure out how good an apple is at being an egg. Like, they're not even close to the same. And like, once you get past the point where it's like they're both food or they're both blockchains, you're done. Like, that's it.
Exactly. And I think, I think people are confused. I mean, because I guess early on when you come into crypto, you know, you don't have they're all crypto to you, right? What's this Bitcoin? What's this Bitcoin Cash? What's this Ethereum? What's Ethereum Classic? You know, you're all confused. So you're trying to make that decision. And that's what, I guess, when those arguments matter. But the moment you kind of, you're in the space for like a month or two and you start feeling the different kind of mentalities and you can start to understand what each project can do, because Bitcoin and Ethereum are completely exactly like what you said, is an apple and an egg, right? One's a fruit, one's a protein. Okay, they're not even the same thing. Right? And you know, you need both, right? Like, to live. And I think maybe that's the case, maybe not, but at the same time they're not comparable whatsoever. And I think the longer people waste having that debate, the more time we're going to waste, you know, stopping us from moving forward. I think that's my argument, I guess.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. And you know, there are things you distinctly cannot do on Bitcoin that you can do on Ethereum, and that due to the way Bitcoin is governed and that it's the right way of doing it, that stuff will never happen on Bitcoin in any real actionable way. Not in the same way, at least. No. And vice versa. Like, if I measure Bitcoin by Ethereum standards, it will never live up, and vice versa. So there's no point in doing so. Both have merit in my mind.
Exactly. I think so too. So now, other than this, okay, so like, let's finish that debate. I think we wrapped it up really quickly. Bitcoin, Ethereum, two different things. Let's not even compare them. Okay. Then now what's your next step? Right. So I'm actually very interested, because I mean, you make really amazing videos, Tech Describer, and you know something that's really crazy. Thanks. So prior to this discussion, like this guy maintains a full-time job. I'm like, how? How, man? Like, and
sometimes I don't know either.
That's crazy. So are you working from home now? Like, what are you trying to do in your full-time job?
Yeah. I'm home now. I've actually been home most of the year. Actually, it's like most of the work was already shifting to remote, anyways. You know, because you have teleconferencing and all this other stuff, and you can sit face to face. But yeah, for me right now, one of the big things that I'm working on is trying to, coming from the lens of having built things with Ethereum and also built applications with traditional tech that sort of are meant to interact with Ethereum, right? Like Node.js, you know, Express, like classic mean MERN stack applications. Trying to look at other platforms and protocols that have come since the advent of Ethereum and trying to compare and figure out where those projects fit in terms of use case, right? So like looking at the toolkit that you get when you look at Elrond, like what applicability is there for that? Looking at projects like Zilliqa, a bunch of different protocols out there that have capabilities to build out smart contracts and to build applications with, and seeing how they fit and where they would maybe be better fits than Ethereum in certain cases. That's my big area of study now, just to help enterprise. Really, you know, enterprises are trying to allocate capital to not get left behind. And so the more that you can help give them an idea of where to start and then build them stuff to amplify that money that they're spending is smart, in my mind.
That's interesting. Okay, so after looking at that, I mean, you mentioned Elrond, Zilliqa. Have you taken a look at like VeChain for the enterprise stuff, and then Algorand as well? Like, what's your take? Like, do companies rather prefer? What do they prefer? Like, from what your experience is like?
I think there's two sides of the coin, pun intended. You have the folks who are very preferenced that are saying like usually it's based on country, right? If you're based in Asia, they'll be like, we want to use something like VeChain, or we want to use Tron, or we want to use something like that. And then in the US, they're like, no projects except for things that started in the US. Canada is kind of like US or Canada will take a protocol from either one. And so that I find interesting, is that it's very like geography focused.
Yeah, it's very tribal. That feels like it. Geographical, tribal, a little bit. Yeah.
And that's kind of the reason why I've been doing the research that I've been doing lately, is so that I can put on paper. I don't even mention origin, like where the thing came from. It's like, decide based on what's best for your use case and what is going to make you the most value, and clear the easiest path to what I think is important, being on a public net, right? Because a lot of these enterprises, they want to do private networks first. I totally get that. And I actually think it's smart to experiment private first. But your path should always be, how can we get to the public network and to reap the rewards of that security benefit, the finality, and other things that you get from being on a distributed network. So yeah, I mean, from that perspective, there are also a lot of people who are very open-minded, and you say, I think this is the best protocol for you. Let's do it. And they're like, sounds good. You're you know your thing. So it's one of the other. Yeah.
I guess it really depends on who you talk to and where they are. And I think there's a big confusion here. And I think this is where the whole crypto space doesn't make it easy. Because yet again, our whole space is very tribal, right? Like you mention something and all of a sudden it's like, oh, why don't you mention that? Why don't you mention this? And I think like that's so weird, but it's because people is invested into a particular project, just want to see it to a success. But I think for getting actual enterprise adoption, I think just removing the political element, I think that's important, because after all, these blockchains are public. I mean, they're supposed to be owned by the community, right? And then choosing what's best for them is hard. And I think, what else? Well, I'm pretty optimistic for that. I'm pretty optimistic that there is actually a very strong need for it to prove, like you said, finality and etc. And it depends on each individual use case. But I feel like there's a lot of problems to solve, and we better start solving them quickly.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is like the political aspect that you mentioned is derivative of governments, not people, right? Like, it's derivative of that level of like mistrust at like the highest levels. Like, me sitting here right now, I would not sit and question being on a network with someone from another country, from China, from Russia, whatever. Like, those things don't cross my mind, because the reality is that at the people level, there's really not an issue, right? And so I think that is the promise of this technology, is that we can sort of not have to, I guess you don't have to just settle for a reality where everything just has these walls around it, right? And like, hopefully we can shift towards technology that's really actually shared across borders properly, rather than it being this like, you can access it in the US, but you can't access it here. Or we're not going to enter into a network where there might be people from another country. Like, that's not even what the internet was designed for in the first place.
And I think that's a very interesting discussion. I think that leads to like the political side of things, because software is rapidly becoming more political. I mean, we have the whole situation of Trump trying to executively ban TikTok. There's a talk about Tencent as well, right? So WeChat, removing that. And I think software becoming more and more political is actually good for blockchain, because blockchain is not political, and it's also unstoppable as well. Because a lot of people were wondering, at a certain point, would China actually try to block Bitcoin? And that's actually near impossible, because the thing is, we know that China in the past, they blocked various American tech companies, right? So they blocked, say, Facebook. You want to try to access Facebook? Well, you can't. Tough luck. Twitter. You want to go to China, mainland China, try to access Twitter? No, you cannot. Or you may immediately be on error 404. So tech is blockable, but what's powerful about Bitcoin itself, and I think this is where Bitcoin is unique in a way, is that you only need 1 megabyte every 10 minutes of data transfer. So that's kind of the beauty of it. You can mask that data so well that you can still keep these two networks in sync. So even if China go off grid, they try to block it, it's just 1 megabyte of data that has to go out of the country or enter the country, and then that's done. So I think that's a unique proposition over there. And I was thinking to a point, can we even make a political software? Let's say like, if WeChat is banned, can we have like different like messaging clients in different countries, but we'll still communicate on the same blockchain? That could be
Yeah, you
interesting.
could theoretically.
Yeah,
I mean,
theoretically you can, right? Like whether you can be like a WeChat, MeChat, KuChat, and then everyone's just like communicating with the same protocol and its protocol is decentralized. That could be very interesting.
mhm.
So I don't know.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there, man. There's a lot there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the whole concept behind the like banning of technologies. It's like we deem as, you know, as a government or even as like a company, like companies will ban software within their enterprise. It's like we deem this to be harmful or we can't verify that it's not. Like that is kind of the decision maker. And so the shift towards open source protocols and applications, like technically everything on like an Ethereum application is open source. You can go look at the contract and you can figure out if it's, you know, if it's doing what it's supposed to do. Obviously that takes acumen. You have to be able to actually look at it. But, you know, that is an interesting shift. Like as soon as you stop doing this sort of fly by night closed source application where you're not sure if it's scoping your information or you're not sure what permissions it has, like that's when you can say, hey, whatever country you're from, as long as I can verify that you're not up to no good, cool. Doesn't bother me.
That's actually pretty interesting. That's a cool thought. I mean, that just came across as well because I mean, if you look at Curve DAO, right, with the deployment of Curve DAO, some other guy deployed it, right? It wasn't even the core team. Just like it was a crypto chat that deployed it, but they managed to verify. Okay, look, this is the same contract. You know, it's going to perform the exact same features. Okay, let's just adopt that. So
yeah, they said he saved us time.
Yeah, I didn't agree with that move, but you know what? Like that's one advantage of crypto. You can you can verify that contract will execute the exact same way that you intended it to. So
yeah, and that's why it's nice. Like the ERC standards are a great example of that. You know, you want to verify quickly that an ERC standard meets or that a contract meets the standard. You know, you're going to have these interface signatures basically that you can quickly determine, hey, this is working as it's supposed to. Like you have that validation that it's built right.
That's pretty good.
From the standard perspective. The other features, no, but you know, the core
rebase, right?
yeah. Except for those little minor details, you know, starchy vegetables and all.
Oh my God. All right. So I think let's do one last question, one last discussion point. What do you think is next? I mean, we have this whole DeFi wave. Do you think this is the thing that was going to lead us there? Or do you think there's going to be a next wave of some sort of hype after DeFi wave?
I think probably what's going to happen next is that there's going to be a protocol battle. I think in 2021, maybe into 2022 is going to be like the ultimate showdown, like Super Smash Bros sort of style battle between all the different protocols that offer smart contract capabilities. It's going to be a fight to build out grant money to pay for developers to build DeFi products and to build them safely and to build them for scale. You know, projects like Elrond, Cardano, Zilliqa, Algorand, Tezos, they're all going to be fighting this out and they're going to try and go for the same goal. And that is to get people on board and to make sure that their network is airtight from that perspective and have products being built. And I think that's going to be like the next hype. It's going to be like, okay, well, which protocol is going to win?
Interesting. So you think there's a battle? Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. But I think it'll be a friendly battle because there are a lot of projects that take from each other, right? A friendly battle between the actual projects. The fans of the project, unlikely.
Who knows?
We all know how that goes.
Exactly. And I think that too. I think there's gonna be NFTs. I think I'm in the middle ground of discovering how we can actually make this a good play. I think after DeFi, everyone was like, especially in China, everyone's like hyping about NFTs. But NFTs in its current form, I think it's not too sexy because who wants a JPEG that you pay $300,000 for, right? I mean that makes
Yeah.
zero sense whatsoever. But like having some sort of functionality attached to NFTs, whether it's used in video games, and this is a caveat. I mean, having been in the video game development space, everyone is going to pretend it's easy. It's not, because you actually have to have a game that's designed around trading, and you just can't stick trading on there and expect it to win. I think this is the biggest thing that pisses me off with the whole space, is that everyone's like, oh, let me figure a popular game, Fortnite, plus trading. Oh my God, why aren't they doing this yet? Well, there's good reason, because people who play Fortnite want to shoot each other. They don't want to sit in a medieval, auction house buying gear and buying the armor. It's just not fun, right? So I think a lot of people need to start understanding what makes games fun and how to fit trading into games. And I think that's going to be key. So I think it's still going to happen, but it's going to happen in some form that recognizes that to build something fun or useful, it's going to be hard, but we can make it happen if we actually try hard at it. So I think NFTs are still going to happen, but we just have to be very, very rigorous with it. And I think, DeFi, after DeFi, maybe something with NFTs, and then the protocol battle, protocol wars, 2022. Here we come, guy.
Here we go. I mean, I agree with you on NFTs. It's probably behind interoperability, it is my favorite avenue, I think, from like a tech development perspective in the space. And there's so much there. Like it taps into the human innate desire to collect stuff, right? Like I have like baseball cards and trading cards from when I was a kid. Like these things are worth a cent in reality, but it's like the intrinsic value you associate with something, whether it's code or if it's paper, it's largely the same sort of mental state that you have to be in for it.
Exactly. And I think we just need to figure out how to separate that from just a JPEG. Because obviously, what's the difference? Like a card is a real object. So I guess we can have the sentimental value. But if it's just like
look at this
image,
picture.
You look at this picture, then we just can't do that. So maybe it has to have some sort of functionality there. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully we can catch up. So guys, check out Forrest's channel. Hashtoshi explains so much stuff. It's just insane.
Thank you.
Make sure you guys keep watching, and hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me on. And for folks watching on my channel, please do subscribe to Box Mining, one of the first channels that I ever subscribed to on the old crypto YouTube. So
nice. Thanks, man.
Right on.